I'm sure by now you've seen several videos that propose ways to reboot Super Smash Bros. Or cut Ultimate's roster or what have you. And really, it's no surprise why. Many people, including the series director and spokesman Masahiro Sakurai, have observed the fact that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is so grand in scope that it's daunting to conceive of another standard entry in the franchise expanding on what Ultimate did, as every previous new entry in the series had for their respective predecessors. So many people share their ideas and so forth regarding what content, mainly characters, they'd withhold from Ultimate to make room for new and/or improved versions of old ones in the next game. As for me, I too believe the next Smash Bros. Should dial back on characters, and vehemently agree that part of the vision for this potential reboot should be to go back to the series' roots of being a showcase for Nintendo's worlds and characters, rather than a curated selection of impossible matchups across gaming's entire history. As we all know, those who attempt to please everybody end up pleasing no one. A single video game cannot encompass the entire medium of gaming any more than a single canvas can encompass the entire medium of painting. But furthermore, I also believe a common trap too many people who propose scaled-back Smash reboots fall into is imagining a game that is too similar to what we've got before. They want rosters as big, if not a little bigger than Smash 4's. They expect newcomers who are either relevant or long requested. Occasionally, they may propose longtime veterans get new movesets that reflect Smash 4 and onwards trend of going high concept on adapting elements from set fighter series of origin, and so on and so forth. I believe that if Nintendo's really going to reboot Super Smash Bros., they ought to go all the way back and start from scratch as though they're making the very first Smash Bros. Again. This is the sort of philosophy behind Breath of the Wild and Pikmin 4. It doesn't mean previous games in their series and their ideas are ignored, but it does mean the game is designed first and foremost around the initial promise of their series' first game. For Zelda, it's having a huge environment to explore and make discoveries within. For Pikmin, it's utilizing the Dandori method of strategy to complete tasks efficiently with as many resources as you have handy. And in both of these cases, they play very differently from their respective first games. Yet they set out to accomplish the same mission, and often to great success and acclaim. So when pondering the possibility of a Smash Bros. Reboot, I ask myself, what experience is Smash supposed to provide? The answer, an easy-to-learn fighting game that features Nintendo All-Stars. This may be a bit of a hot take, but I don't think saddling each individual character in your fighting game to some particular distinctive gimmick that references a playstyle usually not built for a fighting game is the best way to make the game easy to learn. The bi-directional system and all that, those are good, those should stay. You could even give everybody a shield B move like Inkling to expand their kits, that'd be cool. The game shouldn't be so radically different that it ceases to be a platform fighter, but I think easing up on the meters and drop-down menus and all other ancillary some such that recent newcomers have been utilizing would be for the best. But I sense you may be growing impatient with me. When is he going to talk about the roster already? Right about now, friend. Right about now. Just as soon as I mentioned the game should have a strikingly different art style, look at this mod I found of Potemkin from Guilty Gear in Smash Ultimate. Holy crap! Doesn't he just look so good, visually? Smash 64 used 2D art in its promotional renders. I want some of that. Give me some of that. Give me some of that. Anyway, let's talk about the roster now. The mission of this game is to provide an easy-to-learn fighting game experience that features Nintendo All-Stars. Who are Nintendo's All-Stars? The most famous faces? The most relevant faces? Me, I'm of the opinion that All-Star should mean all-time star. i.e., this character made themselves a star and we'll remember them for all time. I sense you might be getting worried, Ness and Captain Falcon fans, but you shouldn't be, because they are all-stars, man. There may not be a relevant Mother game out today, but Earthbound, nay, the whole Mother trilogy are all-star titles that remain cherished and beloved. Same goes for F-Zero, and especially Falcon himself. Same goes for every franchise in Smash 64, honestly. Sakurai and HAL Labs nailed it on that initial run. Well, aside from Jigglypuff, but you know, there was no guarantee at that time Pokemon would go on to become the biggest media franchise ever, so in a weird roundabout way, still nailed it. But of course, there have been many other Nintendo All-Stars throughout the ages, even as recently as the Switch generation. So how exactly are we going to decide who gets in and who doesn't for this first foray into a new generation of the Smash Bros. Franchise? The answer? To pick characters from series who are most important to Nintendo. Oh, hey, I made a video about this. Check it out sometime. It was a lot of fun to put together and plenty fascinating too. But anyway, I use the words excessively frugal in this video's title for a reason. To be frugal is to be very practical and particular in how you expend what you have. So a frugal roster would be one that casts its characters very thoughtfully and economically. But an excessively frugal roster would be one that does so more than it realistically needs to. So I'm not proposing a roster of 50 characters. I'm not proposing a roster of 30 characters. I'm not even proposing a roster of 25 characters. No. I'm proposing a roster of 20 characters. To start, I'll throw in some fighter passes a little later on for fun, but the base roster I'm proposing is going to be excessively frugal. Ready? Go! Let's begin with 5 vitally necessary characters. Mario, Link, Inkling, a Pikmin character, and an Animal Crossing character. Each of these fighters represent Nintendo's 5-pillar franchises. There is no scenario where a Smash Reboot doesn't include these 5 characters. Who specifically will the Animal Crossing character be? Our first newcomer to the series, Tom Nook. To further this game's mission to be more easy to learn, we're doing away with moves that I have often observed confounding casual players like Villager's Pocket and Villager's Tree, and Animal Crossing will instead be represented by its longtime mascot, who will, in addition to appropriating some of Villager's past moves like butterfly nets and gyros, also produce items from leaves that he can throw around and, I don't know, maybe all sorts of other stuff I'm not going into excruciating detail on. As for the Pikmin character, here is where I introduce a parallel roster for us to work with. See, I believe there is merit to controlling Olimar on his own with his swarm of Pikmin as we have in Smash games past, but I also recognize that much of the Pikmin series' modern identity incorporates Ochi the rescue pup. I think there is merit and appeal in the idea of adapting Ochi into a Smash fighter, but he doesn't exactly have a close-knit relationship with our all-time all-star Olimar. And because this roster is setting out to be excessively frugal, I can't in good faith just throw my hands in the air and say, why not both? So instead, I've set up a fundamentals roster and a modernized roster. Olimar sans Ochi will be the fundamentals roster Pikmin rep, and Ochi with a variety of custom captains on his back, plus an Olimar and Moss palette swap, will be the modernized roster's Pikmin rep. Now, that's a quarter of our roster done already. Who else is all but necessary to include? As much as I may lament the fact somewhat, the Mario franchise does merit a lion's share of the representation, at least by way of having more characters who feel necessary to complete a company all-star lineup. So I'm going to ensure the top row of our roster is made up of Mushroom Kingdom frequenters and add Luigi, Princess Peach, Wario, and Donkey Kong to the lineup. Immediately this raises the question, what about Yoshi and Bowser? To which I respond, they're top priority for DLC. We'll get back to them later. Right now, I want to mention the fact that each of these 4 additional fighters also rep their own franchises as much as Mario. Luigi will have a moveset catered around his appearances in the Luigi's Mansion games. Princess Peach will get moves largely inspired by how she plays in Showtime. Wario will go full tilt on WarioWare, and to some extent Wario Land, because Wario doesn't do a lot of moving in most WarioWare games as it is, but when he does, his moves tend to be based on Wario Land most of the time anyway. And finally, Donkey Kong will be portrayed as he is in the Donkey Kong Country series, which is mostly as he is in Smash games of the past already. Plus, DK Bonanza actually canonized some moves Smash gave him first, so you know. Okay, just 11 more characters now. I mentioned earlier that I believe Ness and Captain Falcon are totally Nintendo All-Stars, and I'm standing by that, and adding them to the base roster. As it is, they're poor fits for DLC anyhow, as most players will expect them up front, and would probably be cold to any moveset departures that are too drastic. By this same token, it should come as no surprise that Kirby, Pikachu, Samus, and Fox are also returning. You may wonder what Kirby, Pikachu, and Ness for that matter are doing on the bottom row, and my answer to you is that they are all only partially owned by Nintendo. In a way, they're the new third parties, lol. Anywho, I could imagine some moveset differences could be implemented among these characters, but they wouldn't be too drastic. I considered doing away with Kirby's copy ability, but it's just too cute and perfect and delightful and beloved to abandon. We're frugal, but we're not that frugal. Oh geez, are there really only 5 more characters in the base roster? Yup! So far, we've only got 1 newcomer in the fundamentals roster and 2 in the modernized one. The Smash series has covered the gamut of Nintendo's franchises so thoroughly. Where do we even find necessary newcomer additions in a roster this frugal? Well, one avenue would be finding a character who well represents Nintendo's ever-important classics branding. Nintendo and Smash alike have been partial to using one-off or short-lived black box NES titles for their purposes. And as much as I love Ice Climber, Duck Hunt, and Rob, I think Smash has always ignored the most obvious classics ambassador, Balloon Fight. If you don't think the Balloon Fighter has enough movement options for a full moveset, you've clearly never played Balloon Kid, or have an imagination. But we're still not done with newcomers. For you see, the Switch generation brought about 2 new in-house Nintendo series that, by my very thoroughly calculated observation, have both already proved themselves to be in Nintendo's top 20 most important. Well, 21, but we're just one well-timed new release away from that changing with a vengeance. Ring Fit Adventure and ARMS. Min Min is playable in Smash Ultimate, of course, but were Springman not included as an assist trophy well before? Would that have been the case? Possibly, really quite possibly. Even still, I'm giving the spot to Springman, because he's more of an everyman for the ARMS playstyle and universe than Min Min. The Ring Fit Adventurer, I also think, shouldn't need much justification from me. Its success speaks for itself, and it's a hearty blend of Nintendo's Blue Ocean aspirations and the distinct worlds and unique characters they're famous for. So this just makes sense. Now there are only 2 spots left. Will they go to veterans or newcomers? Well, that depends on whether we're looking at the fundamentals roster or the modernized roster. I think the former should get Marth and Shulk, and the latter get protagonists from the latest entries as Smash of the past was apt to stack. If Allier and Mio are poor choices, I apologize, I'm not up to date on these 2 franchises, but I know for a fact Fire Emblem and Xenoblade are very important to Nintendo, and I cannot see a Smash reboot, no matter how frugal, being bereft of them. And done already. There's 2 not-so-different proposals for what I believe the roster of an excessively frugal Smash Bros. Reboot should look like. There's balance here. Feels right. Not too plain, not completely lacking in whimsy. Balloon Fighter alone is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, admittedly. But still and all, if Smash wants to take the Breath of the Wild approach to refreshing itself, a roster like one of these with a bold new art style, 3 home stages, 1 Omega, 1 Arena, and 1 Gimmicky, for each combatant, actually good online, and substantial single-player content would be the best way to do it by my estimation. Oh, and of course, some well-spaced DLC wouldn't hurt.
Bonus stage!
Here's how I'm gonna map out the DLC. A yearly pass that adds 2 characters to the game each month, a veteran and a newcomer. So by the end of this DLC, the selection of 20 characters becomes 44. A horsehair above Brawl's number of characters, but still less than Smash 4 even before it got DLC. And for chronological ease, let's assume the DLC starts in January! Our first DLC veteran is Bowser. More jovial and in line with his in-house Nintendo appearances than ever before. And our first DLC newcomer is Sportsmate from Nintendo Switch Sports. Quick mid-edit addendum. This choice of fighter would almost certainly inspire outrage in a camp of fans who miss Mii fighters, especially their costumes. But this new game's director would state that due to the game's illustrative art style, implementing them would have been too hard and they didn't even consider it in the conceptual phases of development. And nevertheless, Sportsmate was in consideration independent from Mii's. Perhaps not inspiring much faith from the vocally online that this game will have the quote, soul Ultimate did, but ardent defenders will be quick to remind people that there are still 11 more newcomers on the way, and the veterans seem to have a ton of care and consideration put into them, so just wait until February. This month's veteran is Pit from Kid Icarus, a welcome sight and key kindling for speculators who'll say, since Sakurai is just a supervisor on this title, does this mean a new Kid Icarus is in the works? But never mind that. This month's newcomer is Toad. Just Toad. Princess Peach doesn't use him in her moveset anymore, and this guy is now free to reference a myriad of Toad attributes, from Super Mario Bros. 2, to Wario's Woods, to even Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, and he's got a Toadette palette swap too. Online consensus from the Ultimate Glazers here is still that this reboot is toothless, and their complaints will hardly be quelled come March. This month's veteran is Yoshi, and his moveset has been streamlined this time round. His flutter jump is now an up B rather than a very odd double jump for one thing, but I'm sure there are other changes I'm not going into detail on here too. This month's newcomer is Waddle Dee. The longtime Nintendo faithful Smash fans will go nuts over this, and officially start pushing back on the Ultimate Glazers that this game is the reboot Smash needed. Discourse, as usual, is sensational and unpleasant. But shucks if this game isn't fun and exciting. Did I mention every new character brings like 3 new stages and a slew of single-player content too? Ah, you don't care. Everything comes down to names, doesn't it? What was the name of Aubrey Plaza's character on Parks and Rec?
ʻfro.
This month's veteran is the Pokemon Trainer. But calling them a veteran is generous, as the trainer's moveset has been completely reworked. No longer does he call out 3 Pokemon who act as independent fighters while he remains in the background. No. Now he summons several Pokemon from multiple generations during his own attacks, with his own movement being inspired by Pokemon Legends Arceus. Some will love this, some will hate it, but all will be excited that this confirms that veterans refer to characters themselves and not any semblance of previous movesets. Or does it? Because this month's newcomer is Ganon, not Ganondorf, Ganon. Pig-like, hulking, and spellcasting. Huh, how about that?
May.
This month's veteran is Zelda. She's been reworked a good deal since Ultimate, but still has most of her base moveset options and such. No Sheik in sight though, bummer maybe. This month's newcomer is so new that they only exist in the not publicly disclosed NSO playtest. If you've played it, you know they have incredible versatility and tons of potential. Ah, screw it, that one Bo video with them on the thumbnail has been around forever and they're on the first results page of Google Images. Here's what he looks like, let's call him developer. That tail is a game changer, I'm telling ya. Oh, I hope Nintendo reveals this game to the public before the edit on this video's done. I really don't want this to get taken down over one maybe regrettable choice.
June.
This month's veteran is Isabelle from Animal Crossing. At this point, Ultimate Glazers, the Melee Purists, and even the Ardent Defenders have begun campaigning for Falco, lol. But our newcomer this month is a delightfully odd one. Meo the Smiling Man, from the latest Famicom Detective Club. Definitely the most tonally different character on the lineup thus far, but he and his home stages will not only fit right in with the game's illustrative visuals, but go on to pay rent for people who upload 3-hour Nintendo Music and Atmosphere Vive videos on YouTube.
July.
This month's veteran is, oh dang, Falco, he's here already, and a version of him Melee players actually like. For like a month until they nerf him in a patch, LMAO. This month's newcomer is a Gen 10 or 11 Pokemon that doesn't exist yet. Yippee!
August.
This month's veteran is Diddy Kong. And this month's newcomer is Rhythm Girl from Rhythm Heaven. A higher concept fighter than we've had in a long time on this Back to Basics Reboots roster, but she's not too alienating. She and her summoned friends perform moves like normal, but if they're executed with good rhythm, they'll deal extra damage. That's all. No HUD, no screen clutter, no difficult learning curve, just I got it, I nailed it, or I fluked it a little bit. And it's all visually telegraphed in their animations.
September.
These next 3 months are going to diverge between the Fundamentals roster and Modernized roster. The former's veteran this month will be Olimar, and the latter's newcomer will be Ochi. So this naturally means that each of these rosters will be getting a different veteran and newcomer from one another they won't be able to share. So that means I get to indulge in my personal favorites as recompense for compensating these safe standard Nintendo franchises so thoughtfully.
Oh, that's what that means, huh?
Yes, that's what that means. The Fundamental roster's newcomer this month will be my long-wanted goat from my favorite long-neglected Nintendo series, Ray Mark III from Custom Robo. Nah, better yet, Ray Mark IV from a yet-to-be-released Custom Robo revival that has a post-apocalyptic scrap metal aesthetic. Ooh, yeah. The Modernized roster's veteran for this month is Mr. Game & Watch, Smash's first tribute character whose very existence is a love letter to an entire era of the company's work.
October.
This will be the month each roster gets a new Fire Emblem character. Marth for the Modernized, Allier, or whichever Fire Emblem protagonist is most recent, for the Fundamental. As for the Fundamental's veteran this month, Min Min. Arms can have 2 fighters, the characters have interesting standalone attributes, and the game has hundreds of possible armaments that only add more distinction. If you're not an ARMS fan, I don't want to hear you trying to dispute or deride this fact, especially if you also defend or advocate the fact Ultimate has 4 nakedly derivative Marth variants. That said, the modernized roster's newcomer this month is Dr. Coyle, the ARMS series' main antagonist. This reboot's first perpetually hovering character. Eat your heart out, Dark Samus.
November.
This month will bring each roster their missing Xenoblade characters. Shulk for the modernized, Mio, or whichever Xenoblade protagonist is most recent, for the fundamental. The veteran for the fundamentals roster this month will be Ridley. More or less unchanged from Ultimate, though some will swear he seems bigger somehow. The newcomer for the modernized roster this month will be a real curveball, F-Type from Stunt Race FX, or Wild Tracks as it's known in Japan. It's a race car with googly eyes designed by the same guy who made Fox McCloud and Captain Falcon. If you don't love him, you have no heart. And don't try to tell me he's not an all-star. He's the first Nintendo original character to be rendered in 3D, and he's the mascot of Nintendo's 35th most important IP. So yeah, put that in your tailpipe and smog it.
December.
The last set of the Year 1 DLC, and this will be a momentous one, for this will bring our Smash reboot its first third-party guest characters. I think there are obvious choices as to who these two should be, but I also think there are too many obvious choices as to who these two should be. So I've opted to fall back on this roster's guiding principle of excessive frugality, and am choosing to ease us back into this scalding hot pool with some very Nintendo-spirited choices. The returning guest veteran will be Banjo-Kazooie. These characters were birthed and celebrated as ubiquitous Nintendo mascots before Xbox bought them out and squandered them, and it's been Nintendo fans alone who've continued to carry their torch into the present day. Regardless of who owns the copyright now, Banjo and Kazooie are Nintendo All-Stars. And if we're living in a really bright timeline for this game, maybe Xbox will have worked out a Bayonetta-type deal with this IP, retaining ownership, but signing their distribution rights exclusively to Nintendo for new games. Wouldn't that be lovely? But now we come to the final character, our first guest newcomer. One who has been requested for longer than the Bear and Bird, and for the love of all that is holy, you should know who I'm about to say. It's Geno. It has to be Geno already. A Mario Universe character made and owned by Square Enix. A Nintendo All-Star and Square Enix All-Star who stands out in both crowds due to the influences of the other. With the first year of DLC done, that's the roster for an excessively frugal Smash reboot expanded into a more character-rich endeavor. And that's not all. This game's director, not Masahiro Sakurai, remember, he's just supervising this time around. Let's call her, Ada Kinsok. Ada Kinsok. That sounds Japanese, right? She tells us that now that this DLC is done, the next Fighter's Pass will go full tilt on guest newcomers and veterans. So get excited. In fact, they're holding a new Smash ballot for it. And to participate, all you have to do is leave a comment on this video telling us what veteran and what newcomer you want added to this reboot the most. Go ahead, do it, and hit the like and subscribe buttons to send your submissions. It'll totally work. Totally. Anyway. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please hit the like button if you did, subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos if you haven't already. And please consider becoming a YouTube member or Patreon patron to get behind-the-scenes updates, vote on video topics, and get a credit at the end of videos like the ones you see here. Thank you again, and I will see you the next time I see you.